Hi everyone, welcome to the meeting of the mayors. We wanted to bring in each mayor that was impacted by the May 26, 2024 devastating tornadoes. So let me introduce to you as we have a little roundtable discussion talking about the events that unfolded that morning. Our first mayor on the far left, we have Mayor Bob Tharp with the city of Decatur. To the right of that, we have Mayor Stephanie Orman with the city of Bentonville. We have Mayor Bill Edwards with the city of Centerton. And to the right of that, we have Mayor Greg Hines with the city of Rogers. And then finally, rounding out our mayors, Mayor Jeff Van Sickler with the city of Little Flock. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So we want to discuss the May 26, 2024 tornadoes. And my first question is, and we're going to start off with Mayor Tharp, where were you when the storm hit, and what was your experience like?
Well, the whole evening and afternoon the day before, May 25th, you had notified us something was going to happen. So we retired for the night, prepared, and I'd already talked to my police chief, making sure our room was open, our safe room was open at the elementary school. And so we had a lot of things going on in the background before I retired for the night. Well, then at midnight or shortly thereafter, KNWA weather alert woke me up. Benton County alert woke me up. It all hit about the same time. And I prepared to get out of bed and get dressed with shoes on because I knew I was going to be somewhere other than my house. Fortunately, I stayed in my house. Many didn't, but we stayed in our house. So from that point on, I talked to my police chief, making sure that the alarm was set. We set those by telephone. There's three of us that could do that, so we were beginning to set those alarms over and over and over, make sure. And the alarm and the safe room was opened, and people began to flock into the safe room. We collected about 100 to 150 people at the elementary school, much to the credit of you coming to Decatur and doing the schooling with our kiddos. And so that was fresh on their minds. And I think that probably saved Decatur a lot of injuries and frustration. So anyway, so that's where I was at. As the morning progressed, I was watching you on live on TV, and you begin to say things are looking bad, and all of a sudden you said debris, and Joy and I, my wife, we knew that we had to be hunkered down. So we stayed in the house. She put me in the hallway, literally put me in the hallway, wouldn't let me move out of the house until the storm had passed by.
Yeah, it was an interesting storm to say the least. My experience with it, that was my wife's birthday, was May 26th. So the night before, we were celebrating her birthday with all of her friends and family. What I know is that I didn't want to make it a lot about the storm, but I knew in the back of my mind, this could be a very bad night. And so when that storm started moving in and we saw that debris, it was incredible. What was your first thoughts on when you first heard of the damage?
At that point, Dan, is that your question at that point?
Yeah, at that point.
Well, at that point, I have lived in Benton County for 38 years. I've lived in the country most of that period of time, and so I know those people out west of town. So we began to physically, literally call people's names out because we could see where the storm was passing over. And we knew where the storm was at for people that we knew we loved. We had connection for all of these years. So it was scary. It was worrisome. We didn't know if the house was going to be gone. And I remember thinking, well, I'm in the woods, so I'm protected. Later on Carlton Drive, I found out I was not protected.
Yeah. I think that landscape will never be the same. I drove out there a month later, and it was just the trees that were deforested, bark was stripped. I saw it from the helicopter too, and we'll talk more about that in just a bit, but I was astounded. But then the storm wasn't over. It was moving eastward, and so that's why we want to talk to Mayor Bill Edwards with the city of Centerton. You were next in line with Bentonville close to getting impacted as well. So tell me about your thoughts that night.
So, I like to watch the weather. I mean, it's something I've actually alerted the community earlier in the day, and because the Weather Service put out that we were in a moderate risk for severe weather, and that concerns me. I came here from Oklahoma City and went through the 1999 tornado May 3rd, so I have a little experience with that. But I thought, and then as the storm approached, I was watching you also on Facebook Live, and then also watching NWS Chat. But also I have a radio, and I was listening to the traffic out of Decatur, and you know, some of the damage that was called in by their fire department and police department was already out and about. So at that point, I did set the sirens off. We didn't have a tornado warning for Centerton yet, but it was moving, you know, to the east. So I wanted to, you know, alert everybody with plenty of time, and then I've set them off 2 additional times as it approached.
Man, I mean, yeah, the tornado warning, and like we were mentioning, that storm is just looking like it's not going to stop. We're going to get to the police and rescue efforts and first responders, because we do have that astounding video in the special. But next we'll go to Mayor Orman with Bentonville. So Bentonville now is on the north side of the storm, and so tell me what you experienced that morning.
Well, actually, early that morning, I think it was about 1:41 a.m., if I remember right exactly kind of when it hit. Previously to that, I was in touch with our fire chief, who sets off our sirens, and we actually set our sirens off twice to try to warn people. Those sirens are meant for people that are outside, though, right? Mm-hmm. So we always tell people to make sure you have your Benton County alert as well, because especially if you're asleep, that's what you want next to you. And I think that's what we've heard from a lot of people too, is that they had that Benton County alert that was very loud that actually woke them up. And we've actually heard stories of people, they felt like they were not impacted because their alarm went off to get to safety. So, but in contact with them, we set them off. I was actually in my basement with my family, my 2 dogs and a cat, trying to keep them corralled as the storm went through. Constant contact with our emergency officers. As it went through, I was watching sort of my neighborhood Facebook page and all of our different Facebook page, and I was telling them, wait for the 3 sirens to wait. That's the all clear. And then immediately got in my, dressed where I could get into my car and started to get out of my neighborhood onto Central. And when I got onto Central, I could see huge trees across one of our major roadways. Yeah. And we knew at that point it was a
serious situation.
It was serious,
yeah.
And headed to our command center, where it's connected to our dispatch center, where all the emergency calls were coming in.
And Bentonville was interesting too, because it was on the north side of the storm. We'll get to the damage and kind of talk about that as well. So you experienced this storm. You were at home when it hit, and so this is definitely a personal impact on you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was an incredible storm, but it wasn't over. Now the storm's continuing to move east. And what was tricky about it is we didn't know if there was a tornado on the ground as it was approaching Rogers, but we did have Peyton Langford, one of our meteorologists that was storm spotting, and he started seeing the funnel. So let's move on to Mayor Hines with Rogers. Rogers getting majorly impacted by this storm. Take me through your experience.
Yeah, so not unlike you, the 25th was my wife's birthday as well. And so we had, sort of celebrated that, and our youngest daughter was home from college for the weekend, and we had all kind of settled down, and I had stayed awake, had watched the news and the projections, and so I thought, well, there's no point in probably going to bed. I might as well stay up and and make sure. And my wife and daughter were upstairs asleep when the first alarm went off, and they texted down, hey, should we come down to the safe room? And I said, oh, I'm sure it's going to go north of us. Give it just a minute. And it was just a minute, and everybody was back downstairs. I likened it more to a hurricane from my experience. And I don't have a lot of experience with tornadoes. I've lived in Rogers my entire life for 48 years, and this is only the second time that I recall a tornado touching down in our city. And so I opened the patio doors kind of right after what I thought was the most of the event. And I mean, the debris that was just piling in the house, just pieces of leaves and small twigs that were still stuck to the glass the next morning. We lost a 110-year-old pecan tree right in our backyard. And when that thing fell and laid, I never felt it, heard it. I mean, that's how much noise was associated with the storm.
Yeah.
So just super scary event as it happened, and then to try to look at what the aftermath was for me. There was no evacuation for us after the storm. There were no roads anywhere close to open in the historic downtown area for me to get out. So I didn't get out till the next morning, and I crawled out.
Yeah, there were first responders that were trying to, I saw the police vehicles. We got some Rogers dash cam video in our special too, and what those first responders did, and they were in it. They were in the storm as it was happening. And so it was very quick that storm developed. And like you said, there was that little calm that was kind of in the middle, like you said. You likened it to a hurricane. Believe it or not, you're actually still in the center of the rotation of the tornado, and on the outskirts of the tornadoes where you sometimes get those strongest winds. And it's called the inflow jet, but that's sometimes really tricky. We've got examples of that, and we even have some sound from an interview of someone in Rogers that said the wind was strong, and then it weakened, and then it cranked back up, and that's when the damage took place. So now the storm's moved east. It's destroyed all those communities that we just talked about. And now it's moving towards Beaver Lake and east of Rogers and Little Flock. And so we got Mayor Van Sickler with Little Flock. Tell me about your experience.
The sound of the wind woke us up first, but immediately thereafter the Benton County alerts went off on our phones. So we, my wife and I and our 2 dogs went down to the basement, and I got the news up on my phone and had heard that Decatur had taken a hit pretty hard. So I texted our on-duty police officer, asked if he was in a safe place. Our police department's located within City Hall, so I wanted to make sure he was at least somewhere safe. And about that time we'd lost power, we lost internet, obviously, and the cell phone service wasn't that great, so I wasn't able to stream any news. So I started texting. I believe I texted Mayor Edwards, and then I was texting back and forth with Mayor C out of Pea Ridge, and then trying to also reach our kids in various places. And Mayor Edwards reported he was good, and Mayor C was good, and our son was leaving an event in Rogers, and he said he was good. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe this isn't that bad. And it wasn't until about 2:30-ish that I received a call from our deputy fire chief, and he said that we had that City Hall had taken a direct hit by a tree, and that there were trees and power lines down across the city. But even that, I mean, we're heavily wooded, so that's not uncommon for storms to have trees down, but I didn't know he meant
every tree almost.
Yeah. Trees everywhere. So.
Yeah, and that tree that came down on City Hall, you could see it was massive. It had to be over 100 years. 100-year-old trees getting knocked down. So the experience was incredible. Now, this question already kind of answered itself, but were you aware of the severe weather threat for the Memorial Day weekend before it happened, like Friday, Saturday? When were you aware that there could be some bad storms?
So
Leave it open for
I was
anybody.
aware that morning. So.
Yeah,
Saturday.
yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Our emergency services sends weather updates that come out of the Tulsa Weather Center, and so I think we all get those.
Yeah.
They were all talking about how this storm could happen, and it's the one that you dreaded that would take place in Northwest Arkansas. And I've been here 18 years. I remember the March 12, 2006 tornado, which, by the way, was very similar to the path of some of those Centerton tornadoes. A Papa Hollow tornado hit the exact same roads. Byers Road, Kofelt Cemetery Road, right on the south side of the bend of Highway 102. But what was interesting for us, just to let you know in terms of a personal level, we had storm fatigue leading up to that, because there were a lot of storms that were supposed to come in that were supposed to be really bad. In fact, on that Tuesday before, there was a massive complex of storms, severe thunderstorm warnings. Before it made it to Arkansas, it fell apart. And then we had another time that happened. And then on Friday, storms developed when they weren't expected, and they were stronger than we expected. And then the River Valley had a storm that went from severe thunderstorm to tornado warning in 8 minutes. So it was quick. But the Weather Service did a phenomenal job on those warnings and issuing those alerts, and I really do believe those saved lives. So what do you think was the most shocking to you after the storm moved out of the area? After you experienced it, now you're realizing the scale of the damage. And I'll leave that open to any mayor.
I think I took a helicopter ride the very next morning about 9:30. I knew it was bad because I couldn't get out of my neighborhood. But But going up and taking that view and being able to see the wide path of rotational destruction, and then on either side of that path, these straight line winds that just basically cleared the canopy of the trees that didn't fall over. I think that's when I really understood the gravity of the situation we were in, and the full destruction of residential homes in some of our legacy neighborhoods. I've never seen anything like that. And then to pass over Northwest Park, a park that
Yeah.
had just opened a couple of months before with much anticipation from our baseball kids, and to see it destroyed was that's tough too.
And a lot of schools too took hits. Describe that.
We did. Next to Northwest Park, Lingle Middle School took a hit, a pretty big hit to their sort of, I guess, southwest corner of the building, and they won't be able to have school there for this next school year. So those kids will be, in trailers and temporary structures until the damage can be repaired. The other RPS system facilities are going to be operational by the time school starts, as I understand it.
It's impacting so many families. How about Centerton, a Little Flock? Any schools take a hit?
No, none of the schools did. Some of our city facilities did. We have a firehouse out there off on the west side of Highway 102, and we had some damage there. And then the property next to it lost a lot of trees, and then houses just to the west of that. I was shocked to see that some had second floors that were just gone. A lot of damage, a lot of debris just scattered all over the property out there, especially just west of our firehouse.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, Byers Road, Coffell Cemetery Road, Shady Acres, all that out there. And I understand nobody was injured in that, and that's a blessing in itself.
And some of that wasn't talked about very much, the hail. There was some really large hail that fell with that storm too, which kind of got overshadowed, but you got a lot of insurance adjusters that are talking about the size of the hail could be exceeding 3 inches, and so it was a tremendous storm. How about Mayor Orman from Bentonville? I was shocked when I saw the damage in Bentonville because the circulation was kind of hidden from going over Bentonville, and in fact, the Weather Service never really confirmed a tornado. I've been trying to talk to them about it. There is definitely a definitive path, I do believe, on the north side of Bentonville, and it runs from Lincoln, all the way, Lincoln Junior High, east-southeast, all the way to exit 88. And it's a very definitive path, but not a lot of the trees are pulled to the west, so there's not a definitive convergent weather pattern, wind pattern.
So again, when I got out right after the storm happened, you couldn't get down to. We had 3 parks sort of in that downtown area, like electric poles, trees. You couldn't get down the streets to even see. When I made it to the dispatch center. And all those calls are coming in, and we've got crews going out everywhere, checking on people and knocking doors. Just honestly, in all of that, just being so thankful for our emergency crews and that there wasn't, we did do some transports that night and different things, but it's to see the amount of devastation from trees and electric poles and everything, and to know that for the most part people were safe in the middle of that. Pretty amazing, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I was looking at some of the pictures, but the root balls on these trees.
Yeah.
We went and you just stand next to them, and they're huge, and they just lifted out of the ground. Like it was just, honestly, it was really shocking whenever you really got out and started to see the destruction.
The power of the wind. And on the Facebook Live, as we're commenting, we're only seeing the radar. The radar tells us we had eyewitness reports too from spotters, but we didn't know the scope of the damage. But we're seeing reports coming in from those people. Tree down on my home, and Bentonville and Rogers, and people were reporting that, and that was like real-time reports. But they were mentioning the amount of devastation in Bentonville, and Bentonville. We talked about it was heading towards Bentonville, but the actual circulation was a little south of that, the big circulation. So I do want to get to the emergency response, because we were talking about the trees that were down everywhere and the way that they cleared it out very quickly. And also I'm going to go to Mayor Tharp. We have the body cam footage. I've watched all of it from your officers, from your police chief. I want to hear your thoughts behind that, and just tell us how amazing those people are.
Well, they're awesome people. I didn't know those body cams even existed until several days after the tornado came through. The chief and I were talking about it, and he was talking to somebody else, and he goes, body cams. We got body cams on all of our officers that were out there. It's just amazing what they went through that night. And so my surprise was, I went to town after the first time I went out again. I was just amazed at the number of people that were in town. They were kind of stunned. They didn't know where to go or how to react. But these were people still in town trying to get into the Handy Mart place. And then the next place is when I went out Falling Springs, which Carlton Road is 4.7 miles from City Hall, west of town. And when I turned down Carlton off of Falling Springs, it was just blocked totally with trees, massive trees just piled up. And so I turned around and went back. But you know, my officers did such a wonderful job because they went house to house. They did rescue stuff that they don't normally do. They didn't have boots on. They had their uniform shoes on, their uniform clothes on. Some of their uniforms were destroyed because of what they did. But you could hear in the videos, "Are you here?" And one lady was under debris, and they actually went in and got her. Another lady was handicapped, and she was in her house. She's wheelchair, and they broke a window out and pulled her out and just basically lifted her out to get her out to safety. This is stuff they don't normally do.
Yeah.
They don't normally do that. Now, they're trained to do that, but they don't normally do that. So they're awesome. They're just awesome.
I talked to
that happened
those
on 102.
Yeah, the Rush family.
Yes,
so,
that group.
Kenneth and Donna Rush. We talked to them just on Memorial Day after the tornado hit. They survived the storm in their living room in a little chair, kind of like a little lazy boy, and they were praying. And the only thing that was left intact in that living room was that corner of the living room. Everything else just collapsed, and the entire house was destroyed. Yeah. So they were praying heavily. The power of prayer definitely saved their lives. So
and
it was incredible.
Neighbors, the Lashleys, next door to them, they hunkered down into a walk-in closet, and they couldn't get out, but our guys got in and got them out. And they were more. She was more worried about her puppy in a cage and her medicine. And those are the two things that she wanted to make sure she had. So they were taking care of the basic needs, and this is what it's all been about. In Decatur area is people coming together to take care of basic needs.
I loved hearing the video because I watched the entire thing, and it is gut wrenching. It touched me personally, but praying with some of the victims. I also saw them when they're like, he's running. They're running everywhere because they can't drive. As you mentioned, trees were down on every road. Every way was blocked. They're running sometimes half a mile, almost a mile. And then you hear them running. This is why we train. This is why we do what we do. And, they just were calm, collected. They were catering to the people that were being rescued. I just can't say enough about them. And Rogers Police, they were out there as well. Yep. Do you see them taking care of people? Tell us about the first response with your city.
Yeah, well, as was mentioned before, both police and fire train for these scenarios, but you hope it never happens. It's one of those things where you train for the worst and hope for the best. That night was the worst. And, from rookie officers that are barely out of the academy to the most senior in our police department, both and in fire as well, just stepped up that night and performed their duty in a calm, methodic measure, using best principles and practices, and respecting the command structure. And but it was crazy. It was chaotic. There wasn't anything. What I likened it to in talking to the chiefs later was there was nothing I could have done that wouldn't have added more chaos.
Yeah.
There were already more calls coming in than we could answer, and so there was. It really was just for the first few hours, just step back, let these folks go call to call, answer them the way they can, report back, collect data. But I have to mention our street department as well. I mean, this is 30-something people that came out immediately and began to try to open up streets and to help the electric company gain access to places that were without power because of a transformer that exploded or whatnot. You know, they can't just go in, it's got to be secure. And so, you know, all of that collaboration and cooperation, and that comes from years of just knowing one another and having, you know, periodic meetings where you don't have a reason to plan. You just need to make sure that all the personalities know each other before these events happen. You know, the night of the event is not the time to introduce yourself and find out what your interests are. You need to know the kids' names and all that beforehand, because when it's call time, it's go.
Let's go.
And we need quick, concise answers and decisions to be made. And I felt like that's what happened with both of our utility partners in the electric side, as well as our internal organizational departments.
Yeah, it was incredible. Anything else you want to add, or?
Oh, I'll just add, you know, our first responders and our public works department, they all mobilized right away. Even before the event, I was in touch with the police department, and they did a fantastic job. Right after the storm passed, they went knocking on doors that had damage, checking on people. And actually, while they were out checking on folks, they did find 2 house fires. They found one up on the north side of our city, and they were able to get the occupants out and get the fire department there, and the damage was minimal. Same thing on the southwest side off of LC Hickman Road. So, you know, they did a great job. Public Works come out, because we also had some flooding issues. We had so much rain in such a short amount of time. You know, we did have about half a dozen structures that received flood damage. So I'm very proud of the staff that came out.
How about Mayor Van Sickler?
I echo the same. I mean, we have volunteer firefighters that were out there immediately after the storm, beginning to clear roads. Our 3-man street department crew was out. Our entire police force was out. They'd gotten an extra saw out of the street department, and they all just took different sides of the city and started clearing roads.
Yeah.
I mean, if you consider the volume of trees and everything that came down, they had at least 1 lane open by the end of the day. And for a crew that small to make that happen is amazing.
Yeah.
So
I know the communities responded too. It wasn't just, it was people
True.
grabbing
Very
chainsaws, but I know that, what was your thoughts on that? From what I saw, Northwest Arkansas strong, hashtag NWA
absolutely.
strong.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, truthfully, I look at when I walked out and saw that morning to try to go to accept this helicopter ride and not realizing that we were trapped. I mean, essentially from a vehicular standpoint.
Yeah.
But every street around me, you know, when I'm in the downtown, so it's a grid system, all you could hear was the resounding sound of chainsaws. And those weren't, you know, and oftentimes our crews. These are just residents coming out, checking on their neighbors, and as soon as the neighbors' health is checked on, they're out just cutting and clearing streets. And so, you know, I was able to get out and come meet you and the governor that evening at 6 o'clock. So that just, and again, like you said, by the end of the day, by the time the sun went down, every road had 1 lane at least open. And that doesn't sound like a lot, you know,
pretty miraculous.
but it's pretty
All things
unbelievable
considered.
with all things considered.
yeah.
Absolutely. Mayor Tharp?
Well, I may have already said this, but the width of this tornado that came across us is the width of Decatur. And had it aligned itself in a particular way, Decatur could have been gone and many of us could have been dead because of this. And, you know, what we do, Mayor Edwards and I, in our towns, we have things that we do together. We process wastewater. Had that thing hit the wastewater plant, it would have impacted him. Had that hit our schools, it would have impacted our schools. If it had impacted Simmons Prepared Foods just south of Decatur, that would have impacted the brand that they sell and the food that they provide to. So this thing had the potential of being an astronomical thing, that much bigger than what it really was, and not to downplay it at all, but
Yeah.
it was a big deal.
It was a big tornado. In case you aren't aware of, the 9th widest tornado in the country's history, and the widest tornado ever in the state of Arkansas. And you know, the tornado that came through on October 29th, October 21st, 2019, Yeah, that was that was an interesting one too. You dealt with that. That was more on the south side of Rogers. We were watching that going, oh no, same locations. It was just a little bit more south of the one that happened on May 26th. But that was also a wide tornado, 1.5 miles wide. So tornadoes can and will happen here in Northwest Arkansas. If you're watching and thinking the hills are going to protect us, not so much. I do want to talk about from a federal level. We mentioned the local level. How has the federal response been on a national level?
It's been great.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the fact that our governor was on vacation when this happened, and she was on the ground by 6 p.m. the night of the storm,
Yeah.
and stayed the next day, and then left and came back the next week. To be with us and see, what work had been completed and what still yet needed to be done. All of our federal delegation have all been on the ground with from the 3rd District and our 2 senators.
Yeah.
And then having the FEMA director here. I mean, that you can't really underscore the importance of having, people in that almost cabinet level positions coming through and actually seeing the destruction themselves, because they're going to be the ones that are helping process this for many months and really maybe even years. And so I couldn't be happier than the response that we've had from our federal delegation and our state delegation as well.
Yeah, and I would echo that. The collaboration, the reach out from our representatives, from the governor's office, to really get us all connected. I think it's probably a testament to this area and also the state and our federal delegation. I don't know that you see cooperation like that everywhere, and I think you saw it with us. So I really appreciate everybody's efforts.
Well, that's wonderful. I know I've spoken with a lot of victims of the tornado, people that have had major impacts, and from their side, it's never quick enough for relief. And what do you say to those people that are they're searching for relief? Some people we mentioned they didn't have insurance, and I know that's a tough situation. One person was actually going to put the house on the market very soon. We talked to someone that was in Decatur off of Carlton Road, said that they are literally listing the house like very soon, and then they lost it. So what do you say to those residents? An offer of hope.
Well, I have started preaching to them probably Sunday. You need to sign up. You need to sign up. So on the next weekend, we opened up a center of our own in Decatur, small town, at the library, and began to sign people up with FEMA. Not knowing what we were doing, but we learned it along the way. Then we moved to City Hall, and we continued to do that all day Saturday, and then on Monday we continued doing that. And I think we had a really good percentage of people coming in and talking to us and signing up, and I think that helped them. I see people now being able to start building back a little bit, not much yet, but a little bit, and that means those FEMA dollars, the insurance dollars have come through. Their plans now can be reset and get things back in order with their lives, and that's what we want with people. This is bad. Nobody got hurt in our part of the tornado. We had a couple people that did get transported, but they're fine. No one got killed in this thing. Everybody walked home or walked away.
Yeah, which is incredible with that.
It is.
Very wide tornado,
It is.
but unfortunately there were fatalities that happened from the
Yes.
storm. One that was off of Canal Street. You can tell us a little bit about the response there.
Yeah, so and Canal's out in the unincorporated area of Benton County, so not one that we would have mutually aided responded to, but we didn't respond to that one, and that was just a really sad incident where where a tree fell on a house, and there was an elderly couple there, and she didn't make it. There was another fatality that occurred inside the city limits, which was at a nursing facility at Old Rich and Dixieland, where a large portion of the roof was damaged in the storm. And as the nurses and nurse assistants were trying to usher residents back into another portion of the building, someone sustained a major cardiac event and perished that night. So not directly because of the tornado, but certainly associated with the activities in the aftermath of the storm. And so we recognize that as well. But as the mayor mentioned, we're blessed that no more lives were lost, and one's too many. But when you look at Now, with all the knowledge that we have, you look at that path and the power of that storm, the destruction that it left in its path. It's unbelievable that more people were not injured and or killed. And so, that's something to look forward to. I think I tell folks, look, FEMA is here on the ground. They want to help. It's easy to process. It's not an intimidating process. And they have a new tool in their belt that they haven't had for other storms in the past that just started in March. And that is so there's a $42,000 cap on individual assistance, but there's an additional $42,000 cap for underinsured gaps. And so knowing that so many people in Northwest Arkansas have really been the beneficiary of appreciating property values, they haven't kept up with their insurance. And so I would venture to guess that 80 to 85% of people in Benton County are probably underinsured on their home.
Yeah.
And so this will apply for that gap. But going forward, folks need to understand that while we hope this never happens again, when you get your fence repaired or the worst scenario that you're in, you need to get with your insurance company. You need to make sure that you're covered to the level that you want to be covered in the event of future storms.
Yeah. I know that a lot of viewers expressed, people were saying, how could I sign up? I didn't have any power. There's telephone poles. I have a tree in my house, and people were just like, I don't have internet. I don't have a way to know to sign up. But now, that's several weeks later, obviously. Is there a cutoff for signing up?
So the date's been extended into the middle of, I think it's at the end of Q1 25 at this point. So, and that's a moving target. They're going door to door now, FEMA is in our area. So, SBA's on the ground, FEMA's on the ground. They're not going anywhere until we've all had the ability to avail ourselves of the services. And then some of our nonprofit groups, Samaritan's Purse. They've said we're not leaving until it's done, until everyone is in the recovering process. And so
there's so many wonderful communities, organizations coming together the next day. Volunteering, packing up goods, really taking care of these people, knowing that they truly care for them. I do want to mention, you were talking about that it's amazing how not as many people, like a very limited amount of people, still too many, but a limited amount of people passed away from this storm, and there weren't many fatalities. I do believe that the time of the night had something to do with that. Now, as much as meteorologically as we don't like storms to come through in the early morning, even though we couldn't see it, you couldn't imagine this coming through in the middle of the day where there would be people in businesses on 24th and Walnut, and you've got people that are out there, I think, with them in their homes, taking the best shelter, the best place to take shelter. I think that definitely had a major impact.
Sure.
So that was something that I just wanted to add. So what can the residents expect with the coming months and years for relief efforts? And we'll go down the line here. We'll start with Mayor Tharp.
For the foreseeable future, just sign up for your insurance, get your FEMA dollars, make your plans, make plans wisely, and I'd like to add that I'm just real proud of a little town like Decatur that the churches in town, particularly the First Baptist Church in DeKalb, has fed people for over 30 days, 3 meals a day with donations. They have fed those people, and it's not a restaurant. So people can get things done. We were able to get portable showers, portable toilets, those types of things out into the impacted area. So I think the people just need to say, wow, they did a good job responding. That's what it's going to be like in the future. It's going to come together, and we're going to respond together. We're going to grow together, and we'll be okay.
And like you said, he experienced a storm like this. Hopefully another one doesn't happen, but you learn things from a disaster like that. Mayor Edwards of Centerton?
Just add what Bob said is, folks really, I just hope they have a way to receive notifications. That concerns me. Some of the storms that we've had here this year have all come at night. The tornado in Springdale came like 4 o'clock in the morning, and don't rely on, like Mayor Orman mentioned, don't rely on them sirens. They're outdoor warning devices. I mean, they'll wake you up if you live close to it, but make sure you have a weather radio, or our news stations have great weather apps, BC alerts out there. Make sure you have a way to and then also, again, if you haven't filed with FEMA, please do that right away. Let them know, and they're in our community now and working with us too.
And how about Mayor Orman? I'm still trying to figure out if that was a tornado or not for those
I
residents.
agree with you. I think it was a tornado, so we're going to still have to work on
the
convincing
verdict's
everybody
still
else.
out on
So,
that.
but we have a debris hotline, so we've been taking personal calls. If they, we're in the second swipe going through the city of trying to get debris up. So we want people to call us if they think that they've set more debris out and we need to get a truck down there. We're in, again, personal contact. We've been encouraging everyone to make sure that they have used the FEMA resources. Our library is open. It has internet. We can send on-demand transit to get you there if you need somewhere to go to get logged on and do whatever you need to do, or we can take you somewhere to meet with a FEMA representative. We're here to help people, and we're going to be here throughout this process, and we want people to know that. And so I think that's our message.
I appreciate it.
Mayor makes a great point, and I'd just like to interject.
Yeah.
That the county judge he's working hard in the county to get all the debris, vegetative and non-vegetative, picked up. And so they're on probably about the second or nearly the third swipe on Carlton Drive and 102. So I just encourage people, don't get discouraged. Talk to your county judge. Talk to me. We'll work it out. If they get stuff to the roadways, it'll get hauled off.
It'll get picked up.
The
yeah.
debris will be gone.
And how about Mayor Hines?
Yeah, well, we're approaching 700,000 cubic yards today that our hauler has picked up. That's in addition to what the residents have brought us to the other 3 sites we had for drop off. So well over 1 million cubic yards of vegetative debris as a result of this storm. That doesn't even begin to talk about the construction debris. So as our hauler has put it, and they've been doing this for a long time, and so is the monitoring firm, that from a debris standpoint, it's the worst they've ever seen.
Wow.
Hurricane, tornado, whatever,
Yeah.
the worst they've ever seen.
Wow.
So I'm glad we got a good quick start on it, but now the process is going to go a little slower as pass through and pass 2 and pass 3 comes through. And so, but what our residents need to understand, we're not going anywhere. We're going to haul debris until it's all gone. And so people need to just be patient, continue to put their debris out at the curb, keep it separated. Vegetative debris from construction debris, from trash, keep it away from power poles, from fire hydrants, from any other utilities that sit in your front yard. But we'll be there. I also want to say that this is not a next month or by the end of the year when the fat guy in the red suit comes. This is going to be a much longer process of recovery. Yeah. And it's a psychological process of recovery, because even as you get your home put back together and your neighbors do, you still have to leave your neighborhood, and you're going to see 24th and Walnut, which isn't going to be back to normal for a long time. And so I think as folks start to go through this process of, it's almost a mourning process, similar to losing a loved one. And everybody grieves differently, and everybody grieves at a different time. And so I just think it's going to be super important for folks to give space and grace to their neighbors, coworkers, loved ones, maybe spouses, because we're all going to process this a little bit differently, and it's okay. Yeah. It's okay to meet people where they are and help them get through this process. Because I every morning when I get in the car and I'm driving to work, all I see is blue now. Whereas before, all I saw was green.
Trees, yeah.
And so my whole windshield is full of blue. It's so weird. It's still weird a month later, and it's going to continue to be that way as we lost the vast majority of our canopy.
Over 100 years, they never moved. So yeah, Mayor Van Sickler.
It's definitely a storm that changed the landscape of the city. It's now we're driving in, there's no city hall anymore, and people come up, and we're working remotely out of the fire department at the moment. But thanks to the city of Springdale, they donated us a mobile unit. I saw pictures of that up there. It was delivered last week, but we'll get moved into it probably sometime next week or the week after. And then we're on the road to recovery from the standpoint of getting City Hall rebuilt. I would echo all the other mayors in the sense that get out there, make sure you file your FEMA claims. It might be a pain. You might not want to do it, but you really should take advantage of that resource. And they've got locations there at the NWAC site. And they still have a disaster response FEMA coordination spot there. So get out there and file your claims. But I mean, we're in it for the long haul. We'll rebuild and we'll have something better.
Yeah.
So.
That's what happens. The community will rally together
Yeah.
and rebuilding and hashtag NWA strong. So, any other? I have a real quick question. I was thinking about this when you were talking about debris. Where does that debris go? I'm wondering.
Ours
that.
was burned.
Okay.
So we had a little over 108,000, not 700,000, but
That's
a little
what
over
that puff of smoke
108,000 cubic
we were
yards.
seeing on the radar. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep.
I know you have a huge facility in Bentonville, Mayor
So
Orman.
we have a couple of different sites. We're actually, right now, we've sent notice to ADEQ of one of our piece of property that we own, if we can land apply it and get permission or get the permit from them. And so we think we have a place to be able to take the wood chips and apply. So we're waiting to hear back
Mulch.
from ADEQ on it. Yes.
A lot of firewood, a lot of mulch. So
Now, I'll just add to what, when we picked ours up, our street department actually did all the work and did an outstanding job picking it up, and we actually had a dump truck with a shredder on it, and they were just shredding as we picked it up, and we're going to use that for future city projects. We burnt half and then mulched half of it, so I just wanted to recognize our folks did a fantastic job getting it all cleaned up.
We've got a lot of debris to get rid of.
yeah.
And what I can tell you is that we've got several different solutions right now that we're hauling to, and several solutions we're looking at. What I'm trying to do is at all costs try to avoid the landfill, and I'm trying to avoid potentially hauling it to some other site to burn it. We can't do that in the city.
Yeah, absolutely not. So, anything else that you guys want to add at all? Something that you thought that we didn't cover?
No, I just want to recognize, all the cities here in Northwest Arkansas. One mentioned Northwest Arkansas Strong. Everybody reached out to us. I heard from other cities, as I'm sure they did too, and we sent folks into Decatur to help out. And that's one thing about Northwest Arkansas. We all seem to work together and have just work together for a common cause.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to just echo to encourage all of our volunteers to continue that process. I know you talked about Samaritan's Purse, Sheepdog. Those are missions for us have been very, but we're continuing to connect neighbors to those volunteer groups to help get it off the private property into that right of way. That's really, really important for the pickup process. And so we want to encourage volunteer groups. For us, we have we have a lot of trails, so we've got a ton of people that are out on our trail system so we want to encourage those volunteer groups. I know when it first happens, everybody wants to rush out, and honestly, in that first week, it's almost challenging to get volunteers out in the middle as we're just trying to get the roadways open. Now, really, we do need those volunteers, and we need to encourage those volunteers throughout this process. It's really important, I think.
More than ever, so those impacted people can still get that help, because sometimes, people accuse the media of covering a storm, and then once it's over, they're moving on to the next thing, and then those people are forgotten. Well, we won't forget May 26, 2024, and that's why we called our special One Supercell to Remember. It was one storm. It was a significant one that produced multiple tornadoes. So thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. And it concludes our meeting of the mayors.